Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this webinar on the organic approach to plant healthcare. My name is Eric Gall. I'm Deputy Director and Policy Manager for IFOAM Organics Europe, which is the Federation for Organic Food and Farming in the European Union and beyond. And first of all, I would like to thank my colleague Mathilde Calmels for organizing this conference today, and Mr. Eric Andrieux, member of the European Parliament, for co-hosting this conference with us as well, and I will introduce him in a minute. But first, on the practical side, there will be interpretation into French and from French to English for this event. So in the Zoom interface, you have a button at the bottom through which you can choose your preferred language, either French or English. So we are here today because, as you know, the Farm to Fork strategy, as well as the biodiversity strategy, both set an aspirational target to reach 25% organic land in the European Union by 2030. But the Farm to Fork strategy also foresees a reduction in the use of synthetic pesticides by 50% by 2030. And of course, an increase of organic land will contribute to reducing pesticide use. And we want to take this opportunity today precisely to explain what is the organic approach to plant health. Of course, the use of synthetic pesticides is banned from organic production, but the organic approach is not about substituting synthetic pesticides with natural substances. It is about, first of all, about minimizing the reliance of agroecosystem on external inputs, and this is what we want to explain today. On all organic lands, no herbicides are used, and on 90% of organic lands, no pesticides are used either. Pesticides are only used for specialty crops, and it's only natural substances. But next year, we will also have the revision of a sustainable use of pesticides directive, which is one of the main tools to reduce the use of pesticides at the EU level. So what we want to discuss today is how can EU policies also support this goal of reducing pesticides? So growing food without synthetic pesticides is possible, and this is what we will address today. And hopefully we will also take this chance to dispel maybe some misconceptions about organic farming, and also reply to your questions. We will first have a couple of presentations, then we'll go into the panel. And dear audience, you will have a chance to ask questions as well. You can use the Q&A function of Zoom for this, or the chat function as well. But first of all, I want to introduce our host, Mr. Eric Andrieux, who is a member of the European Parliament since 2012. He's coming from Aude, the department in the southern of France. Mr. Andrieux is Vice President for the Group of Progressive Alliance of Socialists and Democrats, the SD group in the European Parliament. Is a member of both the Agriculture Committee and the Environment Committee. And when it comes to organic agriculture and pesticides, Eric Andrieux has quite an extensive experience, because in 2018, he was the chair of a Pest committee, a special committee in the Parliament set up following the controversial renewal of glyphosate, and responsible for assessing the EU pesticide authorization procedure. And between 2014 and 2018, he was also shadow rapporteur on the new organic regulation. And more recently, he was appointed shadow rapporteur for the European Parliament own initiative report on the EU Organic Action Plan as well. So Mr. Andrieux, thank you very much for hosting this event with us, and the floor is yours.
Merci. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. Thank you very much. First, I'd like to welcome you all. Thank you for being here. Particularly, I would like to salute the partnership that we have with the Mathilde, who did a lot of work for this event, and Mr. and Ms. Pilar Agua Fernandez, who is going to join us. and Jutta Kenzer, who's going to present the scientific aspects in a moment. As you know, this is a key moment for us in the Parliament. We're accelerating things, but thank you for your collaboration. It's an important moment to organize this type of event. As you know, a few weeks ago, the Parliament talked about the farm to fork strategy, which allowed us to confirm our objectives that state very clearly to aim for the reduction by half of the use of pesticides and increase the organic farmland up to 25% of the area by 2030 in the EU. So we need to act now. And in the months to come, and I'm going to talk about this key moment, we're going to continue to mobilize around these subjects and introduce other initiatives on the development of organic farming and revise the directive on the sustainable use of pesticides. And today, some of those aspects which the work that we're going to do today, there's a need for us in the Parliament, but also for you in the to have clear national strategic plans. We want to nationalize the policies of the Union to try and make this common agricultural policy effective. We have to be vigilant on the quality of these programs. But before the vote on the strategy of this farm to fork strategy, we had a very passionate debate, which I thought was a little irrational. But this is the context for our exchanges today. Some were even alleging that we were trying to organize, that we were going to cause a worldwide famine. I think that we have to know that at such times we have to really remain vigilant, and we have to try and explode these myths. And in the discussions today, we're going to talk about some of the factual realities of what we're talking about. And we need to allow technical specialists to intervene in this discussion so that we can recognize the numerous alternatives that there are to traditional farming. The reduction of pesticides, of synthetic pesticides. We have to use simple words today. There's more than 500 products of pesticide control are already available. And 40% of the current use of pesticides are covered by biocontrol methods. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And so, we're not just trying to substitute biocontrol methods for synthetic methods. So we're not just trying to cure the existing ills of the system, but we also need to adopt a more systemic approach and seek complementarities in terms of the cultivation of crops. And then we can begin to inform people and change their minds. So we want to go through. We've looked at the question of hybrid and in terms of going further beyond all this, I think in in looking at more genetic diversity in the in wine and grape production. This is a topic which is not the least of all these subjects. I think we need to accompany this. We could also talk about the substitution of research. So we don't really have time to talk about that, but yes, it's in terms of the progress in terms of agriculture in the 21st century. We're coming up against a third revolution, and I think that we need to have wider objectives, and we need a real third agricultural revolution, which will agroecology. I think we've already caused sufficient damage with our previous practices, and I think we have to analyze all this with objectivity, and to say that, look at it from a factual perspective. The debate that we're going to talk about will show that there are solutions. And it's important what's going to happen during the parliamentary debates. It is essential for the future of the agricultural world. That's what I want to say. And I hope that we'll have a great discussion today. And I think we need to demystify in terms of what we can promise, which is, and thank you again to be here today and to give, to try and inform people of, with a great concentration. And so I'll pass, that's what I just wanted to say to initially get this discussion going today. Thank you.
Powerful words. You are fully right. We are very much at a crossroads regarding the future of agriculture in Europe, and the solutions are already there, and they already exist to a large extent. Solutions using preventive methods geared towards agroecology, looking for systemic approaches as well. And this is what we will go into now with the two first presentations. So I have a pleasure now to introduce you to Miss Jutta Kinsler. Jutta is a free scientist who has been working in organic fruit growing for more than 30 years, and her main topics are pest regulation and biodiversity management. Jutta is also coordinating the German network for the further development of organic fruit growing, and she will, as an introduction, precisely explain to us what's the organic approach to plant health and its potential role in achieving the farm to fork pesticide reduction target as well. Good morning, Jutta.
Good morning, everybody, and thanks for the invitation. I try to share my screen.
Yes, thank you for joining us.
And
yes, we can see your presentation.
But now you see echo. Now you see the first sheet, okay?
We can see it. It's perfect. So
Great.
The floor is yours, Jutta.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to speak about plant health care in organic farming systems. Organic farming, wait just a second, I have a problem. So it's better, is a holistic system approach. And what does this mean for the sustainable use of pesticides? You can talk a lot of holistic system approach and then just spray, but a system approach for the use of inputs in organic is the first and the most important thing is that it's part of the organic idea that the dependency of off-farm puts should be reduced as much as possible. And the aim is a highly resilient farming system. Now it should work. Yes, Okay, so if you look at the strategy for plant health care in organic farming, you have three pillars. You have the functional biodiversity, you have the agricultural measures, and you have the inputs. Inputs can be plant protection products and other products, and there is also the input of energy, would be the tillage. That is very important since we do not use herbicides. But the aim is always the resilient system, and the challenge is to balance these pillars as we can in the best way. And the development should always aim to reduce the dependency of farming inputs more and more, so that the resilience of the system is enhanced. What we have to understand, and I'm now speaking for this 10%, I'm coming from fruit growing, so I'm speaking for this 10% that is using plant protection products. There is always, the success is always the intelligent combination of the strategy, and not one product, but you have always to combine these three pillars. Biodiversity is an essential part of the strategy for plant protection, and you can use. Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. We do not see the slides moving.
Oh, for me they move. Okay, they don't move?
No, not for us.
Oh.
So we seem to have a slide.
For me, it moves. I'm sorry, I can't do anything.
Technical.
Stop. I share again, and if it doesn't work, we have to do it differently. Can you see now? Could you see this slide?
Yes, it's a new slide, and we can now see the three pillars you were talking about.
Oh, sorry. Should I start? I think I talked about these pillars, and I will go to the next slide. You can see this now?
Yes, it's working now, and do not hesitate to speak a little bit slower for our interpreters as well. Thank you.
Okay, the biodiversity is a very essential part of the strategy, and it consists in enhancement of predators. You see here a flower strip and such things, but also in enhancement of the functional diversity of soil microorganisms. The genetic diversity of varieties and also of crop species plays a key role in organic farming, and the crop rotation and the crop mixture is also very important. The agricultural measures to reduce the infestation pressures are crop rotation, green manure, use of less susceptible varieties adapted to the location, perennial crops, removal of infested part of plants, and the intelligent soil management. What I want to stress a little bit is the use of less susceptible varieties. Some years ago, we went on resistant varieties. Now we have grown older and we learned a lot, and we go more of tolerant varieties where the resistance, perhaps it's not so fast broken. And organic farmers are always pioneers in the development of such measures, and a lot of measures that are current practice were invented by organic farmers. Mechanical measures for weed control. You see here some example. Tillage is not only weed control, but it's also nitrogen mobilization and water management. So you have also here a combination practice, and also there organic farmers are pioneer. You see one of the pioneers, this is 30 years ago, the first one who invented a machine to work the tree rows. And now there are machines like this that also follow this principle. Organic farming is a holistic system approach, and the system approach for the precautionary risk management. If you use pesticide, the first approach is to use only substances already occurring in the natural system. So the first risk management approach is a system approach. If you discuss about the risk, you have this unpredictable risk coming from the release into environment of artificially designed molecules or of artificially designed organisms. And I don't talk about a predictable risk, but I talk about the things that happen that you did not expect. And of course, the probability is higher if you use something that never was in the system before. The inputs for this reason are limited to substances that are already naturally occurring in the system. These are minerals, these are substances of plant origins, which we call botanicals, substances of animal origin, and microorganisms. But this does not mean that everything that exists in nature is fine to spray. But the second precautionary approach follows the registration criterion, and predictable risk must be evaluated taking in consideration the existing natural background exposition. And you have also to see if the substance is already there. You know a lot of things about it. If there is any plant, a lot of people try to eat it before. And so there is a lot of things that are already known, and there is also an existing natural background. The products for plant protection based on naturally occurring substances are improved traditional uses as rock powder, neem, calcium hydroxide, or there are also new solutions as the codling moss granulovirus or the pheromones. There are still gaps in the strategies, and new gaps are to be expected because we have climate change, and each year we get a new pest and 2 new diseases. So what we need for more resilience of the system for this 10% that use substances is a further improvement of the traditional uses and new substances suitable for organic farming that are specific enough to reduce infestation without compromising the resilience of the system. And this is very, very important because these substances in general cover only a niche. And if you have only a niche, you have a problem because you have a structural challenge for the organic pesticides. If you have newly designed molecules, the intellectual property is owned by one or more companies. And there is a return of investment to be expected. And there is usually a rather high market potential. If you have the natural substances, you have the protection of intellectual property is very limited, especially if you discuss about the traditional solutions, and the return of investment is not so much impacted. So you have the problem, no investment, no registration, substance is not available. And there we have a problem, a structural problem in organic farming for the products. And I think Frank Falk will now talk about a technical problem, but also about a technical, the structural challenge, because it can't be that we can only spray where someone sees a big return of investment. This is a, let's say, this will not work with the challenge of organic farming. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Jutta. As you said, the organic approach to plant health relies mainly on preventive measures and indirect measures and relies a lot on biodiversity, which is an essential element of agro ecosystems. And you also emphasized the importance of further developing organic plant breeding. Plant breeding is very important, but plant breeding that does not rely on genetic engineering, but on conventional approaches, which are also innovative and that relies on variety, which are adapted indeed to local systems and to low input systems indeed. And so thank you as well for highlighting the challenges with the registration of natural substances and with making the alternatives that farmers need more available as well. So we will come back to you during the panel discussion. Thank you very much for now, Jutta. And now I have a pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Frank Falk. Good morning, Frank.
Yeah, good morning.
Thank you for being with us this morning. So you are the CEO of BioFA, which is a medium-sized company based in the southwest of Germany with a leading position in the registration and the marketing of organic inputs, and with a particularity of having a historic link to organic growers associations in Germany. You grew up on a farm in the south of Germany, and after graduating as Master of Science at the University of Hohenheim in agriculture engineering, you have worked as a plant manager on tree nursery for 2 years. In 2000, you joined BioFA as sales manager, and in 2004, you became part of a management responsible for product management and regulatory affairs. So you are very well placed to explain to us the characteristics of biocontrol products and the challenges related to the registration procedure as well. So thank you again, and the floor is yours, Frank.
Thank you very much, Eric. I try to share my screen. Hopefully you can see my slides now.
Yes.
Yes.
Maybe you can put, yes, full screen mode. That's perfect.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for introducing me. Coming back to me once, a few words I would like to add. The company BioFi is dedicated to the organic growers associations, as you, Eric, already mentioned. And for instance, organic growers associations, mainly in Germany, are contacting us if they have problems in sourcing plant protection products for their needs. For instance, we had made a joint venture with organic apple growers associations throughout Europe to bringing lime sulfur back on track, having it as a registered plant protection product. So it was a joint registration project in which we collaborated quite closely with organic growers. But coming back to my presentation, I have two main questions, two main topics to present today. The one is the characteristics of biocontrol products, and the other one is challenges related to their registration. Jutta already gives some input. I will go more into the details, starting and finally closing my presentation with a conclusion. The characteristics of biocontrol products are, if one group is naturally occurring substances of mineral origin, well known by all organic growers as well as conventional or integrated growers. We have sulfur compounds, which are used as plant protection products, as fertilizers or dietary supplement. We have potassium hydrogen carbonate, which is foodstuff, fertilizer, and plant protection active ingredient as well. We have a new compound, aluminium sulfate, which is derived from rock powder. This is already used as food additive. It's used in mineral industry. It's in cosmetics. It's in vaccines, as we are already using today. So it's common everywhere. Another example might be silicon dioxide, kieselguhr, coming from the deposition of fossil algae. So these, what they have all in common, these naturally occurring substances of mineral origin, they have natural variation in their composition depending on their source, where they are mined, where they're coming from. We have existing natural background levels of all of them, as they're used everywhere and they are from nature. They all were well described in literature and included in many studies, and they can be used, as mentioned before, for multiple purposes. Another group of biocontrol products are microorganisms, well known and used for many years, like Bacillus thuringiensis species, or for instance Trichoderma species, which are used for fertilizer purposes, biostimulant purposes, and plant protection purposes. They also are often distributed with high natural background levels throughout all agriculture areas throughout Europe. They are well described in literature, included in many studies, and they can be used for many purposes. What they do have is a problem that which have to be taken into consideration. Often you have products, they are a mix of spores and metabolites, and which makes them sometimes very difficult to register. Last group I want to go into the details are botanicals. Jutta mentioned already a long use on azadirachtin or neem kernel extract based products for the control of lice and other insects. Compounds based on rapeseed oil and in the last years coming up, compounds based on orange oil. Here we have a similar problem if it comes to the characterization or the defining of the active ingredient, as it is with the microorganisms. Microorganisms are a mixture of spores and toxins, and plant extracts, botanicals, are a mix of many compounds. And in addition, they have, depending on the source, natural variations in the composition. But what we need for registration is we have a straight definition of an active substance. Botanicals can also be used for multiple purposes. How can there be any challenges when such natural occurring substances are used in plant protection products, as they are already used for cosmetics, for foodstuff, and for other purposes? And these are coming to my next topic on my presentation, challenges related to the registration. Example, I just will mention a few examples in specific points of the preparing of a file for application of active substance for a plant protection product. The data requirements resulting from the Plant Protection Regulation 1107/2009 are a major problem when it comes to the registration of biocontrol products. Just as it is for chemical active substances in the risk assessment, the whole risk assessment must be carried out for each endpoint in the preparation of an approval dossier. And this is where the problems all begins. Here, using an example of natural background levels, because these are probably the easiest and best illustration of why this is such a problem. The applicant for the approval of an active substance must provide evidence that there are no unacceptable effects on the groundwater, for instance. Maximum concentration levels are set for any plant protection products, the same for chemicals and for biocontrol products. Even in the case of minerals for plant protection purposes, and even if they occur naturally in much higher concentrations. For example, drinking water obtained from groundwater comes from the soil, comes from out of the stone. So why? How to set here maximum concentration levels? This same applies to the effects on soil and water. Which total amount of a mineral is acceptable for plant protection purposes? Is the natural background level of a local environment, is it plus a factor X? And how is this factor X defined? Who will decide in the end? Another example, and a very hot issue at the moment, are residues. The applicant has to define and evaluate methods to determine residue levels. This, for example, that is the distinction of Bacillus thuringiensis caused by the application of a plant protection product and naturally occurring Bacillus cereus. Both compounds are belonging to the same group of species and very difficult to distinguish, keeps applicants, EFSA, and competent authorities busy throughout Europe. A long history of safe use and no real evidence of foodborne disease outbreaks directly linked to the application of biocontrol products based on Bacillus thuringiensis are not enough, not sufficient to prove evidence to competent authorities. Those parties, competent authorities, EFSA and EFSA, are requiring method and proofs to distinguish those compounds, even it's scientific, there's no approach to do it. They require the impossible from us, from applicants. Another example I will shortly present is a real challenge is the risk assessment for birds. Here demonstrated is the calculation used by default. The result out of a study, the LD50 for active substance, divided by application rate multiplied with the number of applications and the shortcut value gives a result. And this result can be below or above 10. If the result is above 10, it's okay. If the result is below 10, a risk is identified and a refinement of further steps are needed. If it comes to an example, potassium bicarbonate, the foodstuff active substance, has a very low toxicity, and no toxicity is observed in a study. It's the LD50 is above 2000 milligrams. This is the highest value that can be tested or can be given in the input in such a calculation. And we have, in addition to see an effect on efficacy in the field, we have high application rates. For instance, 12 kilograms per hectare is applied in 6 times. The outcome of such a calculation is the result in close to 1.98. So we have a risk. And what's now going on? The applicant has to define, to demonstrate that in addition a safe use. So Chemicals showing a risk above 10 are safe in this case. We, with our food additive, we are not safe. We have to go into the field and demonstrate by higher tier studies that we have no risk, that there is a safe use. And the last challenge, the most economic challenge I want to present, is to secure the low risk status. The low risk status is for us, for our applicant, the only possibility to reduce the costs, because we have reduced fees. We have the possibility to extrapolate and to bridge studies, mainly in regard of efficacy, which is a very cost-intensive part of the application, and we think we gain a faster, accelerated market access by having a low risk status. But the problem is, before you apply, the determination, the setup of the low risk status is only after the approval of the active substance, and in addition, a low risk active substance is not in the end a low risk plant protection product. So, as an applicant, I do not have any planning security, and there are impact by several issues, for instance, risk mitigation measures, which are currently under discussion by competent authorities throughout Europe. Coming to a conclusion. The biggest challenge for an applicant like we are is the current concept handling of the chemicals-oriented process in regards to data requirements and risk assessment, registration costs, harmonized rules, and predictability if it comes to a result, if we in the end up with a low risk status. This huge challenge leads to the loss of a highly selective plant protection products, which favorable ecotox profile as there is no return on investment, as Jutta mentioned before. If we have a product very, very selective and only targeting one pest, as we have with the Bacillus thuringiensis tenebrionis against the Colorado potato beetle, no company is willing to invest in such a niche market. The investment in this registration, in the filing of such a dossier, is enormous in comparison to the return on invest you might gain. Data, what we are requiring is that data requirements have to be suitable for naturally occurring substances like minerals, and the registration process has to be adapted to the special characters, requirements, and function of natural substance to be used in plant protections. There are, in addition to the given 1107 2009 regulation, several guidance documents how competent authorities might handle special biocontrol products like botanicals or microorganisms. For instance, there is a good botanical guidance document how to apply and to provide dossier to regulatory authorities. But in the end, it's all in addition to an existing regulation which is made for chemicals. And thank you. That's it. Thank you for attention. I hope I have not spoken too fast and you could follow my speech. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Frank. That was perfect. And your recommendations are very clear. Indeed, like you explained, the whole registration system at the moment has been designed for synthetic molecules and is not adapted to the properties of natural substances that already exist in the natural environment. And this is a barrier to making the alternatives to synthetic pesticides available to farmers as well. So it's important that we address these barriers as well. So thank you for these presentations, and we will also go back to you for some questions in the panel too. And now, precisely, we will go into the panel discussion. So I will introduce to you our other speakers as well. But first, we just learned this morning that Paul Foissier, the wine grower who was supposed to explain us his practical experience, is unfortunately not able to join us because of personal issues. We're sorry about that, and we wish him all the best. and Jutta and Frank will take over some of the points that he could have addressed as well. But now I have a pleasure to introduce Ms. Pilar Aguar Fernandez, who is Director of Health and Food Audits and Analysis at DG Sante. Good morning, Ms. Aguar Fernandez, and thank you very much for joining this discussion. So you have joined the European Commission in 2001 after working for the Spanish ministry. I'm introducing your biography very quickly. You worked for the Spanish Ministry of Health in different positions, and you started in the Commission working precisely for DG Health and Consumers, and then you went to work for DG Research and Innovation, and also for the GRC as well. And you finally returned to DG Sante in January 2021, where you were appointed Director of Health and Food Audits and Analysis. So thank you for joining this important discussion. Good morning. And my first question to you is that, as we have discussed, the European Commission is preparing a revision of a sustainable use of pesticides directive expected for March 2022. And according to the Farm to Fork strategy, it will be one of the main tools to reach the target on pesticide reduction, and in particular by strengthening provisions for integrated pest management, IPM. And IPM is certainly a cornerstone of the current SUD, and it's certainly part of the solutions to reducing pesticide use and risks. But as we have seen, organic agriculture with its unique approach to plant health is also part of a solution. So my questions to you is, what role will organic agriculture play in the revised SUD? And more generally, how does the Commission consider the contribution of organic farming to achieving the pesticide reduction target, and through which initiatives? The floor is yours, Ms. Aguar Fernandez.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this. First of all, thank you for this kind of invitation. It's a pleasure to be here today. I've been listening to our speakers before me with a lot of attention. I've realized that there are many of the things that they've mentioned that they're very, they resonate very well with the Commission. Things like the SUD, or the sustainable use of pesticides, is one of the elements on this more holistic, naturally holistic approach. We need to do really, we need to tackle these issues systemically. I've also heard a number of things, such as the biodiversity, such as the role that organic has to play in a durable or systemic or a sustainable approach. And indeed, one of the key elements, one of the pillars, if I may say so, of this goal, to reach this goal on really reducing the number of the use and also the use of certain chemical pesticides, is this revision of the sustainable use of pesticides. So this directive that is currently being revised, and as you well mentioned, the target is to have a proposal by March. We will see how the necessary steps are being taken now. Well, what we want to do in this review actually is focus on specifically on certain of the elements of the current SUD, to reinforce them, to make them more useful, or to make them more implementable or implemented. So in this respect, improving the integrated pest management and promote the greater use of safe alternatives are one of some of the major elements that we're looking into when we are doing this revision. And actually the revised SUD promotes, if I may use the general term, alternative low input agriculture, where I don't need to say to the audience here today, organic farming is certainly one of the main ways to address this low input agriculture. So as mentioned, we really need to strengthen, we believe we need to strengthen the integrated pest management implementation and enforcement. There are measures for these we're looking into. A number of the colleagues in the audience today have been in some of our events where we had said that we believe that to strengthen this implementation and enforcement, we need to include an enhanced record keeping at farm level. We also think that crop-specific guidelines are needed at member state level. And of course, we are thinking along these lines when we're developing this new proposal. We definitely have an ultimate goal with the measures proposed in this suit, which is promoting a fundamental shift and achieving a different model of farming, where organic farming is already leading in this direction. Somebody, I think who was the first speaker, said organic farmers are pioneers. So definitely, yes, they are. Again, something that I would like perhaps to finish is with the message that the farm to fork targets are not very in isolation, they complement each other. The organic farm target complements the targets in the revision of the suit. The suit is relevant for promoting organic farming, and at the end of the day, I think we have to work all together and in parallel to achieve not only this 25% of the EU agricultural land under organic farming by 2030, but also to make sure that the targets on the reduced use of pesticides are also achieved. Thank you.
I succeeded in unmuting myself. Thank you very much for this introductory words, Ms. Agua Fernandez, and I will come back to you in a minute about what we can expect the revised study to do to address some of the challenges that were highlighted in particular by Frank. But first, I would like to hear a bit from Jutta to be a bit more concrete. Jutta, could you share with us your concrete experience on the ground of the organic approach to plant health, and what are the main challenges which are encountered in plant protection strategies? And you can also start to react if you want to some of the comments which were made already.
I would like to share one point with you, because when I heard Mrs. Pilar Agua Fernandez speak, it came to my mind. There is a difference between IPM management and organic farming. And this is that organic farming is a system approach from farm to fork. You have not only a different plant protection system, but you have a different system from the farmer to the consumer. We have specialized processing, we have specialized jobs, we have specialized, let's say, in social approach, we have specialized quality criteria. So this is not only a plant protection approach or a low input approach, but this is a different, let's say, also social approach of farming. And I think this is important to understand also for other audience, that we are not talking just about using some different plant protection products. We need us, and it's important. We are talking about a different, you may also say, a different social approach of thinking about farming. We are discussing about agriculture. This is culture. This is not only, let's say, some plant protection products, but this is really a different approach. And I think organic farming is also pioneer in this. And for this, I would like to pledge, as a scientist, I would like to discuss that it's really important to strengthen organic farming, and the questions that organic farming point in research are really leading. If you go for the organic breeding, if you go for, let's say, for all these system approaches in plant protection strategy, this is something that organic farming can put into practice much better than any other system currently can, because of this system approach that we have also in, let's say, that goes from farm to fork, and not only that does not end at the farm door. what I hear from many IPM person is we are very sustainable until the farm door. And then the discussion is, can we sell our apples 10 cents less even? And then there is no sustainability anymore. And I think you cannot do agriculture like this. But this was just a personal statement. Sorry, I used the opportunity. And now I would also get some questions about the plant protection strategy, whatever you feel. It was a little bit spontaneous. Sorry for this.
It's very good. It makes the discussion lively, and it's a very important point that you made, indeed, about the the whole production approach and the benefits that organic farmers get for adopting a more sustainable approach based on agroecology. But I think that Mr. Andrieux wants to intervene. Do I get it right, or? No, not at this stage. Okay. So thank you for that. But yes, maybe I will come back to you then, Mr. Agua Fernandez, more specifically on the on some of the challenges that were highlighted for the registration of natural substances. Even though, I mean, the organic approach, like Jutta explained, it's much more than, using natural substances. It's mostly about using preventive measures, relying on biodiversity, indirect approach to reduce the use of inputs in the first place. But we have seen that biocontrol products, they might be a small element, but they are an essential part of low pesticide input pest management such as IPM or organic agriculture for certain crops. And the farm to fork strategy aims at facilitating the placing on the market of pesticides containing biological active substances, mainly by updating data requirements and the uniform principles for the registration of microorganisms. The question is the Commission considering further initiatives to facilitate the availability of biocontrol products based on natural substances, such as plant extracts, mineral compounds, or semiochemicals?
Now, I was trying to unmute me. So thank you for the question. Jutta, I think that we do not, fundamentally, we do not disagree. As I have mentioned, the work on SUD, the review of this directive, is not taking place in isolation. It needs to be seen as in the puzzle, as just a piece of the puzzle to make sure that we have this shift in paradigm. So indeed, integrated pest management is one of the tools, but it doesn't address everything. And I understand, and I take your point that organic farming is it entails a full change that goes well beyond that. That's quite obvious, and I do not disagree. And that's why the Commission is taking measures in a lot of different corners, if I can use the term. A lot of these supporting measures are happening in different files and that are being worked in parallel. So you're very aware of the intense work done on the implementation on the reform common agricultural policy. There is, of course, also work ongoing on the implementation of the biodiversity strategy, which is specifically, well, I mean, it's very relevant for organic farming, but there is even more concrete examples, the work done under the organic action plan. And obviously the measures to improve, as we have heard, the difficulties that there are for placing low-risk pesticides in the market, we are taking measures on this matter. So with regards of these alternative to chemical pesticides, the Commission, it's working, it's preparing, it's amending the rules for applying biopesticides, specifically for macroorganisms, with basically the ultimate aim will be to help and support to foster that placing on the market, to help substituting chemical plant protection products. This is something that is happening. For regulations are being drafted now with updated data requirements, and so the decision making that has been mentioned and the approval criteria that also have been mentioned are being drafted as we speak and are in the public consultation. So you can find them in the internet, because as you very well known, the Commission does this public consultation before modifying the existing legislation. We expect, again, this is an expectation or a target, that the vote, it would be voted in January 2022, following the scrutiny that has to take place both in the Parliament and the Council. Another thing that was mentioned is guidance documents. So we have, in this respect, we have published a specific guidance document. The idea is to facilitate the approval of semiochemicals, of pheromones that have been mentioned, and botanicals. And once the work that is being done now in microorganisms, we will look into this again, revise this area as well, and we will then take stock and assess and consider if there is needed further information is needed in this respect for these type of substances, similar to what has been done for microorganisms. So the work is there, the concern, we do care, we are concerned, and we're working on that part. And finally, for mineral compounds that have also been mentioned, well, I don't think I have to bring to the table that there are some of these mineral compounds that are considered problematic substances, and therefore I don't think we can have a blanket approach to that. We are definitely aware of the difficulties to replace copper compounds, but we're also all concerned about their persistence in the environment and their toxicity. So that's an area where perhaps more work more measures need to be studied. This is the I think the message I would like to pass with regards of the activities related to alternative to chemical pesticides. Thank you.
Thank you very much for highlighting these different initiatives, which are indeed very much welcome. I think at this stage, I mean, you mentioned copper, and it's a point, I think, where I will address a question to Jutta. But first, you also mentioned the EU Organic Action Plan, which is a very comprehensive action plan and very much welcome, aiming at in boosting both the production and the demand for organic products. And maybe quickly on this, I would like to hear from Mr. Eric Andrieux, because you are also shadow rapporteur on the European Parliament's own initiative report on the Organic Action Plan. And what do you think should be the main recommendations on the European Parliament side regarding agriculture and its role in pesticide reduction as well, Mr. Andrieux?
Oui, merci pour la question et merci vraiment pour la qualité des interventions. Voilà, l'éclairage. Donc, je crois que c'était fait exprès. Je pense que l'objectif est atteint dans tous les cas dans les échanges. D'abord, dire que le rôle, oui, d'abord, je suis rapporteur fictif, pas principal, hein, par définition, donc ça c'est important de le préciser. Et pour autant, donc, on est très attentif, je travaille beaucoup sur cette question-là. D'abord, sur la question que vous posez, donc sur le rôle de l'agriculture biologique dans la réduction donc, des pesticides, qui est évident de fait, puisque c'est quand même le mode de production qui utilise le moins finalement les pesticides de synthèse. Et au-delà de ça, je crois que ce qui est pas important, c'est les propos de Jutta tout à l'heure, c'est la vision holistique, c'est-à-dire qu'on est sur un modèle de production totalement différent. Et effectivement, cette notion-là d'approche systémique est essentielle. Lorsqu'on parle d'agronomie, on ne peut pas échapper à l'approche systémique. Et la question, elle est celle-là, c'est-à-dire l'enjeu du changement de modèle, c'est l'enjeu de la reconquête de l'agronomie. Je pense que, et ça a été dit tout à l'heure, hein, le rapport au sol, le rapport finalement à tout ce qui est de la matière donc organique. Et c'est important de réinvestir le sens et les enjeux d'équilibre finalement, et ça a été dit tout à l'heure. Je crois que c'est ça qui doit animer dans comment dire, le plan d'action. Je crois que c'est là-dessus qu'on doit vraiment travailler. Et on doit accompagner le secteur donc, à ce changement de modèle. Et là, il y a besoin d'information, il y a besoin de formation, il y a besoin de factuel. Pour dire, voilà, attention, vous ne perdez pas sur la valeur parce qu'il y a les enjeux économiques derrière, bien au contraire. Et comme l'a dit Yuta tout à l'heure, c'est une chaîne globale. On est bien sûr dans la nécessité de prendre l'ensemble des éléments de la chaîne, jusqu'au consommateur. Le modèle actuel, je reviens sur mes propos introductifs, lorsque je disais que la troisième révolution sera agronomique ou elle ne sera pas, c'est que le modèle actuel a créé suffisamment de dégâts. C'est pour ça que la vision holistique est essentielle dans le cadre de la santé humaine. Alors, on a toujours du mal à identifier la causalité, blablabla, avec OK, mais dans tous les cas, les résultats sont là, les problèmes de diabète. Enfin, je ne vais pas refaire la litanie de ce qu'on observe donc, au quotidien. Et ces dégâts-là causés sur la santé humaine, ils sont causés sur la biodiversité. On le voit quand on aborde la prochaine climat. Et moi, je crois que la démarche engagée sur Green Deal, Farm to Fork, biodiversité, montre bien une démarche à la fois pertinente quant au sens, et qu'il faut que maintenant, dans les moyens mis en œuvre, les moyens soient raccords, et Mme Pilar Aguar-Fernandez le rappelait, soient raccords avec les grands objectifs que nous avons définis. Et là, il va falloir du courage. Et je le vois bien, en étant rapporteur de la PAC, comment il y a loin, je dis souvent, de la coupe aux lèvres, finalement. Et là, il va falloir du courage. Le premier rendez-vous, je m'excuse d'être brutal, ça va être le rendez-vous sur le glyphosate. On y est, on démarre la discussion, mais c'est mal enclenché quand même. Lorsqu'on voit le travail sur les études préalables qui ont été faites, je crois qu'il y a matière dans la discussion et vous allez voir que ça va, vous savez bien, ça va s'animer dans les semaines à venir. Donc moi, je pense que, et je suis heureux que ce soit la DG Santé qui appréhende les questions, parce que c'est ça dont il est question, dans la vision systémique et holistique, je le redis, de la santé. Il n'y a pas que la santé humaine et la santé des plantes, mais tout est lié. Et c'est ça l'enjeu qui est devant nous. Alors, la question que vous posiez, c'est effectivement, pour les recommandations, pour aller concrètement, moi je pense qu'il faut évidemment, important, dans la mise en œuvre de la réforme, de rappeler aux États membres cette nécessité du soutien à l'agriculture biologique. Et je reviens sur la qualité des plans stratégiques nationaux et surtout du rapport aux écoschemes. Moi, je vais revenir sur la France, où on dit on va accompagner donc, la partie du transfert, mais on ne va pas accompagner le soutien. Ça ne me paraît pas convenable, par exemple. Donc, on pourrait aller dans le détail. Et moi, je pense qu'il ne faut pas non plus faire du bio low cost. Je reviens sur mon pays, la France. Quand on crée un intermédiaire entre l'agriculture conventionnelle et l'agriculture biologique, on crée ce qu'on appelle la haute valeur environnementale, on est en train d'essayer finalement de retarder la mise en œuvre. Non, où il y a un enjeu majeur et où l'agriculture doit jouer un rôle essentiel sur l'enjeu climatique, sur l'enjeu de la reconquête en santé humaine, en biodiversité et autres, et on doit mettre les moyens. Voilà, c'est ça l'enjeu. Et on accompagne par de l'information, de la formation au changement de modèle, mais pas en essayant de tourner autour finalement des questions pour amener des réponses à mi-parcours finalement par rapport aux enjeux qui sont posés. Donc, moi, je pense qu'il faut que les États membres prennent la mesure effectivement du soutien à l'agriculture biologique. Et on le voit bien aujourd'hui avec ce qu'on vit sur la hausse des prix des céréales. Donc, pour être très concret, effectivement, il y a nécessité donc de soutenir l'agriculture bio pour raccourcir les circuits et pour essayer donc de revenir sur la notion de circuit court, d'économie circulaire, etc., etc. Par ailleurs, le changement d'échelle du bio et le passage à 25% de surface, il va falloir des actions, je le dis, résolues des pouvoirs publics pour davantage de régulation, pour assurer l'équilibre entre l'offre et la demande et endiguer les crises de surproduction. Et on vient de le voir avec le lait, donc il y a encore quelques semaines. Donc, il faut bien mesurer qu'on est dans un système économique donc, qui fait appel aux mêmes règles. Et que donc, il va falloir, dès aujourd'hui, donc, prendre des mesures en conséquence. Et il y a différents moyens pour le faire. Et là, je veux juste dire, pour terminer mon propos, que les mesures de crise contenues dans l'OCM de la PAC sont des leviers importants. Et c'est le cas également pour les interventions sectorielles. Vous savez, il y a les 3% sur le premier pilier qui permettent d'accompagner concrètement sur les interventions sectorielles. Et moi, je pense qu'il faut revendiquer que le bio rentre dans ces 3% des interventions sectorielles pour mettre tous les moyens pour tendre vers l'objectif qui est défini ce matin. Voilà donc ce que je voulais dire suite à votre question. En m'excusant d'avoir été un peu long peut-être, mais le sujet est quand même donc, majeur et passionnant, bien sûr.
It is. Thank you very much. And we are very much looking forward to your propositions regarding the organic action plan as well. And you've rightly pointed out at the importance of a CAP strategic plans, which are being drafted by member states. And I must say that we will publish in a few days an evaluation of the ambition of organic support measures in different member states. And we see a clear gap at the moment between the EU ambitions to develop organic farming and the level of ambition in the draft strategic plans. But maybe we'll come back to that. But for now, I want to come back to our discussion as well on the what can be done to improve availability of alternatives and what we can expect of the initiatives that were presented by Ms. Aguar-Fernandez as well, the revision of the SUD, but also the other initiatives. So I would like to hear maybe from Frank and Jutta on this. I mean, Frank, you presented the challenges for registering biocontrol products. What do you think of initiatives presented by Ms. Aguar or Fernandez? I mean, will it help to solve the challenges?
Yeah, with the SUD, the EU policy creates the framework of the agricultural practice on the farm by pointing out how a greener agriculture might look like. This has an impact on farming methods, not only on the use of fertilizers and plant protections, but this has an impact on the amount of pesticides used. And by our idea is that our understanding of the SUD and the EU policy is that the policy has to create a situation in which biocontrol products are part of the system. So biocontrol products can help to shift to greener agriculture. So the use of biocontrol products by integrated conventional farmers must be no binding force. Otherwise, it will block the use or never accept this approach by them. So what we want to, our demand from policy or from the SUD is that the policy has to establish incentives for conventional integrated farmers to use biocontrol products and for companies of us offering economically friendly solutions to the farm. So the part, I think these circumstances are challenging all involved parties. Companies like us, we have to offer and develop biological solutions and strategies which are convincing and affordable. The policy has to establish these incentives to bring the solutions to the market, to bring the farmers to use the solutions by economically incentives. And in the end, the farmers has to get involved. We have to make a transition to a green agriculture.
Thank you very much, Frank. Jutta, on your side, I mean, how can European policies address some of the challenges for the availability of natural substances?
Well, I will not go again in the technical part, but I think, for instance, what I would like to mention is that the registration of botanical is nearly impossible currently, and this is a difficulty also in the copper discussion, because most of the alternatives for copper that are actually in discussion are botanicals, and well, the registration for botanicals is more or less impossible. This is one of the issues. Another issue is what I mentioned at the beginning. This is the structural challenge. We have a lot of substances, especially the traditional substances, that are just not convenient for registration. And we have a lot of problems with them because they are minerals. And we have the problem of the existing natural background. And it's very difficult. When we started the basic substance discussion, we had, if the proposed use adds only a little bit to the existing natural background, it will be no problem. this formulation, this vanished from the guidance document, the working document, sooner or later. And there was a lot of calculation how dangerous the existing natural background is already. There we have to think about, if we talk about alcohol in beer or whatever, a substance as calcium hydroxide, which is used as fertilizer and painting the houses and such things, we talk with a different, we should look with a different eye than if we have a completely unknown new substance. And this is very difficult for people working in risk assessment. I understand perfectly. I know that in England they had some rules. It was the commons, the products that were common in use. And I think if you want to make people understand the decisions that you make, you should look more at the existing natural background and take it as a fixed part and not discuss how dangerous it is. This I think is one of the challenges that is there for the rules. And more sooner, another challenge is the fact that we have always multiple actors. We have products that work whatever as a biostimulant, and at the same time we have, for instance, we have some product that is registered as against nematodes, and we used it to enhance the sugar content of our apples. Now we are not allowed anymore because it's a plant protection product. We didn't use it for this. So the organic products, let's say, they have a lot of multiple uses, and we need also solutions for these. Solutions that are fair for the companies, but also fair for the farmers. And this is a challenge. I think what we need is special persons that are specialized, a group that is specialized on these, let's say, natural substances, because what I realized is that with the current situation of pesticides, everyone is, let's say, afraid to do anything that is just good sense. Because there are a lot of people, what did you do? And so perhaps it would be good to have a group of several member states, of EFSA and so on. So there is a certain backup for the persons, and they can say the group decided, and not one person has to decide something that was just good sense. And a lot of persons will cry, this should not be. This would be my, let's say, my short-term proposal to form a group of experts.
Okay, thank you very much, Jutta. We have questions arriving from the Q&A, but first, I think at this stage, before giving again the floor to Ms. Agua Fernandez, I want to turn to Eric Andrieux again, because Eric, you've been involved in the Parliament's report on the SUD revision, but you were also the chair of a Pest committee as well. So in your view, again, I mean, what can EU policy, how should it be changed, and what can it do once again to improve the availability of alternatives, and especially of botanicals, for example? And can you answer to that, Mr. Andrieux?
Oui, enfin, oui, j'en sais rien, mais je donnais un positionnement. D'abord, donc sincèrement, je dois vous avouer que j'espère beaucoup de la proposition de la Commission, donc, et je ne doute pas qu'elle sera à la hauteur des enjeux. Je le dis avec beaucoup de sérénité, sincèrement, parce que je pense qu'elle a pris la mesure aujourd'hui de la situation. On l'a vu dans la discussion même de la réforme de la PAC, où il y a eu la volonté, même ça n'a pas été simple dans tous les cas, d'arriver à un résultat de compromis. Et alors, il y avait deux parties dans la commission. Je ne vais pas rentrer dans le débat interne de la commission, mais on voit bien qu'il y a des choses qui évoluent. Donc, et effectivement, on ne peut pas, ça par contre, le mettre de côté. L'ambition de Francfort en matière d'agriculture biologique, on ne peut pas le contester. Je crois qu'elle est vraiment réelle dans ce qui a été dit. Et c'est pour cette raison que je ne doute pas, sincèrement, que la Commission fera le nécessaire pour le biocontrôle et pour les alternatives aux pesticides en général. Et ce sujet, et pour ma part, c'est assez rassurant, ça va peut-être vous surprendre, ce sujet va être traité en commande-vie au Parlement. Donc, et c'est donc aux députés d'Envie, dont je suis suppléant, donc, et au ministère de l'Environnement, qui va appartenir finalement le fond de la négociation quant à la révision de la directive. Et je dois vous dire, avec ce que j'ai vécu dans la PAC, je préfère que ce soit le volet environnemental qui traite ça que le volet agricole, voilà, je suis peut-être un peu brutal, mais je pense qu'il vaut mieux à la fois au sein de la commission soit traité par DG Ambi Santé, donc voilà, parce que c'est les enjeux voilà, qui nous occupent, hein, et j'ai vu les limites dans la négociation à la fois des différents ministres de l'Agriculture et des différents services de la DG Agri, pour être un peu plus précis. Donc, hein, et là, j'ai beaucoup d'espoir sur finalement cette nouvelle approche de la part de la Commission. Et donc, effectivement, oui, j'ai envie de dire, bien sûr, qu'on ne pourra pas ne pas parler, c'est une évidence, comment dire, d'agriculture biologique dans la directive Sud. C'est ça, je pense que c'est majeur. Et parce qu'il faut quand même se mesurer, c'est bien à cette occasion que l'objectif, parce que le problème, on nous a beaucoup dit, il faut voir comment s'appuie, il faut que la PAC s'appuie sur le législatif, etc., etc. Ça se fait au fil du temps, donc hein, vous savez bien. L'objectif des 25% de la surface bio sera inscrit dans la directive Sud. Et cet objectif deviendra contraignant pour les États membres et dans leurs plans stratégiques nationaux, donc dès lors que la directive sera approuvée. Donc ça, c'est un sujet qui n'est pas mineur. Donc ça veut dire effectivement, pour l'instant, on est dans l'intention, hein, il y a des déclarations. Avec la directive, ça va se traduire dans l'aspect contraignant. C'est pour cette raison, principalement, que je mets beaucoup d'espoir sur la qualité, je le redis, je ne doute pas à ce stade-là de la proposition de la Commission, parce qu'elle va nous obliger. Et c'est un changement majeur. C'est-à-dire qu'on passera d'un stade d'intention à un stade de contrainte. Et là, je crois qu'il faut avoir, je le dis, et dans le cas qui me concerne, il n'y aura pas d'ambiguïté, le courage politique de faire le saut finalement, d'autant que l'on sait aujourd'hui, on le voit bien aujourd'hui à travers nos échanges, que ce n'est pas un saut dans l'inconnu. On n'est pas en train de faire, comment dire, on n'est pas dans l'utopie irréalisable, quoi. On voit bien qu'il y a des moyens pour justement accompagner le secteur sur le volet économique, donc, hein, par des moyens dédiés, donc en matière de protection des cultures. Voilà, donc je voulais dire là, c'est que là, les semaines qui arrivent seront essentielles pour rendre opératoire, j'ai envie de dire, l'intention louable sur laquelle nous débattons ce matin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Andrieux, and you're right. I mean, there will be a review clause, I believe, for integrating the initiatives related to the Farm to Fork strategy, for integrating them in the CAP strategic plans, I believe, in 2025, indeed. But time is running fast. I will give a last round to all our speakers, but first of all, I would like you to address the questions from the Q&A section. And we have a question from Gabriela Galindo from Politico. Is the ongoing work at the EU level to revise the pesticide rules via the SUD and other things going in the right direction for organic farmers and their plant protection needs in light of the difficulties that were highlighted here? And a specific question from Gabriela to Ms. Agua Fernandez: what are the main regulatory challenges you are encountering in revamping EU rules for organic farmer and the farm to fork pesticide reduction goals, and in particular, how to improve the implementation of these objectives at member states level? That's a lot of questions. And we also have a question from Kevin Smith-Weissman from BLV. It's about substances of general interest, because he says that due to the successful systemic approach to plant health care in minimizing the amount of plant protection products used, we risk losing substances because of the regulatory challenges like Bacillus thuringiensis tenebrionis, which was mentioned by Frank, which are in the public interest and are also important for reaching the EU goals on 25% organic. So what is the Commission and the Parliament's thoughts on supporting natural substances which are of public interest, but whose registration may not be financially feasible because, like Frank highlighted, you know, these are really niche market and substances used in quite small amounts. So these are the questions from a Q&A, and I will take a last round from our speakers. Maybe I will start with Frank and then Jutta, and then the last word to Ms. Agua Fernandez as well. So Frank, a last word from your side and trying to answer these questions as well in 1 minute.
Yeah, in 1 minute, I'll try to. Thank you, Eric. Yes, for sure. As mentioned before, the whole approach to register plant protection products in Europe is is based on a huge requirement on data. For sure, we have to be on the safe side. The use of plant protection, either organic or chemical, has to be safe. There has to be a safe use. But the whole system doesn't allow niche products to come to the right route on the market to help policy, to help farmers, to have products economic friendly, low impact on ecotox, because the invest in such a registration is too expensive. And that's why I'm going to lose. And this has to be addressed by the EU policy. This has to be taken into the consideration with the farm to fork strategy and the SUD. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. A very clear message and recommendation. Jutta, on your side.
Well, two things. First, what Frank mentioned, the structural challenge. I think there must be a possibility to finance such studies for niche products. This should be part of the SUD. And let's say the technical challenge. I think writing guidance documents and then seeing there's a problem and writing again and so on, this will need a lot of time. And until this is done, the problem will not go away. And so my proposal would be to form these, let's say, expert groups for a short-term approach, and to learn also how to learn more about, let's say, about the use of how to deal with natural substances in the registration, because this is difficult, and I understand this, and there is a big difference if you speak with a person that has already 20 years of experience with natural substance, or if you speak with a person that looks for the first time at a natural substance and say, what I'm to do with this. So I think the short-term approach should be to form a big expert group for member state and EFSA on natural substances, and to discuss how to work on this. And the long-term approach should be perhaps different regulations for natural substances. Thank you.
Thank you, Jutta, as well, for these clear recommendations. Ms. Agua Fernandez, can you also try and answer some of the questions asked by in the Q&A, specifically about the, what are the main challenges?
I tried my best.
Thank you.
I will try my best, but of course, I mean, I will have to slice them and make it, little by little, because some of them are very complex. So for Gabriela from Politico, I'm totally sure that you have attended a number of our stakeholder events, and some of the questions you're putting there have been addressed in there. I don't mind at all sharing it with the audience today. The regulatory challenge that we are encountering or have encountered when looking into the revision of SUD. I'm specifically leaving aside the organic farming, because I'm talking about the revision, the evaluation and the revision of the sustainable use of pesticides directive. So you know that it has been what we call in the Commission jargon, a back-to-back assessment and revision and evaluation. And in the evaluation, we have shared, and it's publicly available with the stakeholders that attended this event, a review done by an external and independent body, where some of the challenges that were for the implementation and enforcement of the SUD have been identified. I won't go into detail with all the every single part, but obviously there were difficulties, regulatory difficulties, or challenges to implement properly and in a coherent manner in all member states the SUD, the actual SUD. We have issues, for example, with data, because not all the data are collected, shared, and not all of them are available, and they're not comparable. So that makes it difficult to understand, to have a proper landscape idea or vision. There are other difficulties, such as the fact that the national plans are very varied in their shapes, form, and detail. There are other difficulties, such as, for example, the fact that drones or other technological, I don't want to dwell on drones, but on technological novelties have not necessarily been sufficiently well addressed or cannot be well addressed by SUD. So as you see, there are a number of issues that have been identified. And based on this evaluation or revision, we're now thinking on how to overcome these challenges and to make the new SUD future-proof, not waterproof, excuse me, future-proof, so it can respond to these changes in the technology in the future, but it also addresses the difficulties that all sectors have encountered with the SUD, not only the farmers, but also the member states. And I want to link that to the difficulty, your second question, on how difficult will these changes be actually for member states. Well, I cannot tell you how difficult they will be. What I can tell you is that we are, of course, working very much with the idea that this is a domain where we all have to work together, and the members, we have to provide the best possible proposal so the farmers can really feel satisfied about that the member states have the means, the tools, the capability to implement and enforce that, and the citizens are satisfied with the level of protection that it's delivered to them with regards of the use of pesticides. That would be, in a nutshell, my reply to that number of questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Aguiar Fernandez. And indeed, we are very much looking forward to the Commission's proposal for the revision of SUD, because like you said, there is indeed a lot to improve as well on the ground at the national level to make this reduction of pesticides a reality. And we haven't had time to address all the questions, but I've seen in the chat that there was a reference to the European Citizen Initiative, Save the Bees and Farmers, which reached more than 1 million signature a month ago. Still not validated, I think, at this point, but which
is not yet validated. You're right. But in any case, for these questions that is there, just to say very briefly, the Farm to Fork targets for 2030 are it's 50%. Having said that, 50% in agricultural terms, if I may humbly say, it's tomorrow, and the work doesn't stop here. So I have to say that we have to look even beyond that. We have to start working here now together, and then actually get going, try to implement and enforce a better, if I can say so, a better regulatory framework, try to address that, to go further and further. The 50% is not the ultimate goal. It's the target, but nothing says that we shouldn't aim at going further. So that's something that I want to share with all of you. 50% is not, it's just an initial ambition, but I'm confident that we all believe that if we could go even to higher, that would be a good idea. And as I said, there is life beyond 2030, the scope for our work together beyond 2030.
Very good. And I think your words are a perfect transition for the concluding remarks of Mr. Eric Andrieux, our host for this event today, because we have reached the end of this webinar. So please, Mr. Andrieux, what are your concluding remarks?
D'abord, mes remarques, c'est de vous remercier vraiment de la qualité de nos échanges. J'espère que les participants auront apprécié, même si c'est toujours dans un temps contraint. Et je crois que les propos de Mme Pilar Aguiar Fernandez sont des propos conclusifs finalement. C'est de dire qu'il faut toujours aller au-delà. Je pense qu'on est confronté à un enjeu majeur. Je le dis souvent, de retisser le lien entre agriculture, alimentation, santé, biodiversité, climat. C'est ça le chantier qui est devant nous. Et que dès lors qu'on prend la mesure des enjeux et que l'on acte le fait qu'il faut redonner du sens finalement donc, au modèle agricole alimentaire, ça veut dire de fait la question des pesticides se trouve. Voilà, on peut pas déconnecter ces quatre points, je le redis, hein, agriculture, alimentation, santé, biodiversité, climat. et que donc ça rejoint l'approche holistique dont on a fait état tout à l'heure, et que dès lors que la question des enjeux sont posées et appréhendées par les décideurs, et en particulier les États membres, mais je pense qu'il nous appartient collectivement, donc par la règle et par la contrainte, excusez-moi, d'accompagner le changement de modèle. Et ce qui nous appartient de faire, c'est d'accompagner le secteur, l'ensemble des agriculteurs, pas à pas, comment dire, dans le changement de modèle. Parce que les solutions existent, elles sont agronomiques, elles sont de régulation, elles sont économiques. Et je pense que c'est une responsabilité globale que nous avons. Et pas à pas, il faut vraiment amener ces éléments de la transformation. Voilà. Donc, je voudrais dire ça. Donc, et on voit bien qu'il y a des perspectives réelles et que devant ces perspectives réelles, donc, si le politique, dans son acception la plus large, prend la mesure des enjeux, il faut reconnecter la notion d'objectif, et là où nous avons progressé, avec les moyens que nous devons mettre en œuvre. Et les semaines qui arrivent vont être, de ce point de vue, essentielles pour la question qui nous occupe ce matin. Voilà, moi j'ai beaucoup d'espoir, je vous le dis sincèrement, et je pense qu'on va pouvoir franchir des pas importants dans les mois à venir. Voilà, parce que les solutions sont là, les enjeux sont posés, c'est une question de responsabilité collective devant finalement l'humanité. Et moi je crois qu'il faut que l'agriculture et l'alimentaire redeviennent au cœur du débat politique qui est devant nous. Et on le voit dans notre quotidien. Et si on redonne du sens à la position de l'agriculture et de l'alimentation, on va pouvoir répondre à ces grands enjeux qui sont devant nous. Et ce n'est pas uniquement par la réponse, je le redis, à de l'agriculture de précision ou des nouveaux OGM qu'on va y répondre. Je pense qu'il faut distinguer les objectifs et les moyens. Donc, il nous appartient collectivement maintenant de mettre des moyens en face des grands objectifs que nous avons définis. Merci dans tous les cas, d'abord à l'IFOAM, bien sûr, pour cette belle séquence d'échanges et de travail, et à tous nos intervenants donc, pour la matinée. Merci à vous.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Merci.
Andrieux, for hosting this event with us.
Merci beaucoup.
And sorry, I was hearing the French translation. And thank you very much, Ms. Agua Fernandez, for taking the time to discuss with us as well. As I said, we are very much looking forward to having an increased role for organic agriculture recognized in the revised SUD, and hopefully some of the barriers to registering natural substances will also be addressed in the coming months. So thank you again for that, and thank you very much to Frank Falk and to Jutta Kinsler as well for joining the discussion. We haven't had time to discuss all the things which were mentioned, so we'll probably need to organize another discussion on this. For now, I thank you all again, including our audience and the interpreters and the organizers as well. And until next time, I wish you a very nice day. Goodbye.
Thank you. Merci. Au revoir.
Merci.